They say aging is graceful, but no one tells you how violent the silence becomes. The silence of a room that once held footsteps and soft laughter. The silence of your own breath. When you realize you haven't heard another voice in 2 days. The silence of the body, slowly forgetting how to obey. I was only reaching for the damn cereal box, top shelf. Always was a stubborn one slip, a scream I couldn't finish. And just like that, the world shrank to the size of this wheelchair. And the pain that ripples through my spine like it owns me. Austin's sunlight spills through the blinds, gold and useless. My living room has turned into a waiting room for the end. And the walls know my name better than my kids do these days. Michael's in Seattle with his startup. Lydia's juggling twins. And a mortgage. They call. Sure, on Sundays. The kind of call that feels like a chore for them. And a lifeline for me. 10 days. 10 days since the fall. 10 days of Marlene chirping at me about mind-body unity. Then today. 10 a.m. sharp. Doorbell rings. I wheel over, gritting through the squeak that sounds more like mockery now, expecting grapefruit perfume and another lecture. But it's not her. He stands there like someone torn out of a fever dream, tall, dark. Those eyes too blue to be real, like they borrowed the Texas sky and never gave it back. Scrubs hugging muscle like sin. And that half smile, dear God, that half smile. Ma'am, he says, voice thick as warm honey. I'm Lucas, Marlene's on emergency leave. I'll be taking over your sessions. I forget how to speak. I forget how to breathe. 65 years old, and my knees still know how to shake. I let him in, every nerve in my body suddenly wide awake. He rolls out the therapy mat like it's nothing, like I'm just another patient. But I know better, my skin knows better. His hands touch my shoulders, firm and warm, lifting me like I weigh nothing. I haven't been held like that in years, not since Frank, and maybe it's the shock. Or the way his fingers find knots in my back that feel older than my memories. But when I close my eyes, I don't see pain. I see possibility. Something shifts, not just in my spine, in me. They say you never see it coming. One moment, you're a woman bringing up 2 grocery bags, muttering at the broken elevator. The next, your body folds like a rusted hinge, and your world becomes a hard, cold floor. I remember the grapes. They rolled across the tile like little witnesses. It didn't feel dramatic, just wrong. A sharp, mean wrong that settled in my spine like a protest. When the ambulance came, I joked about needing a new license for the wheelchair. The EMT laughed. I didn't. That was 10 days ago now. I sit in this living room with its beige walls and heavy stillness, like time itself fell asleep here. This couch has molded to my shape. The TV talks too much. And I have memorized every crack on the ceiling, every shift of the afternoon light. Each day is an echo of the last. Each breath is heavier. My children send messages. How are you feeling, Mom? Typed words. Sterile care. My son Derek has a fintech company in Portland. My daughter Nina is a family lawyer in Phoenix. Their lives move fast. I don't blame them. I was like that once, always going, always fixing, until I was. Marlene, my physical therapist, has been coming every morning, chirpy as a bird. She wears patterned scrubs with flamingos and talks about pelvic alignment while twisting my leg like a pretzel. Mind over muscle, Evelyn. Easy to say when your knees haven't betrayed you. Then today, 10 a.m. doorbell. A single sound that felt like a knock on the coffin lid. I rolled over, arms sore, wheels squeaking their protest. I braced myself for grapefruit perfume and the sharp voice of discipline. But it wasn't her. Standing there was a man I had no business staring at the way I did. Young, maybe late 20s, tall. Muscles like architecture under soft blue scrubs, skin the color of fresh coffee, and eyes. Those eyes, so blue they didn't seem real. Not a Texas sky blue, something purer. And that smile, crooked, like he knew the world's secrets and was waiting for you to catch up. Ms. Carter, he said, his voice soft and low, like velvet in the throat. Yes, I managed. I hated the way my voice trembled. I'm Lucas Reyes. Marlene had a family emergency. I'll be working with you until she returns. I opened the door wider, too stunned to feel awkward. He stepped inside, carrying a sleek therapy bag with polished zippers. No duffel, no scuffs, just the kind of order that says, I know what I'm doing. Where would you like me to set up? He asked. My living room had never felt so small or so cluttered. I gestured at the floor near the rug, and he knelt smoothly, unfurling a mat. I watched him, pretending not to. My chest ached in a way that had nothing to do with bones. He was talking, explaining exercises, but my ears only caught pieces. It was the tone more than the words, patient, present. Let's begin with some seated extensions, he said, turning to me with that same unreadable half smile. You let me know if anything hurts. I nodded. What else could I do? He knelt beside me, his hands lifting my arm, adjusting my posture. Warm. His palms were warm, not just from body heat, but something else, like sunlight on skin long left in shadow. As he guided my spine into place, I felt a heat begin to stir. Not pain, not shame, just sensation. It had been so long since I felt anything beyond discomfort. This wasn't romance. It wasn't lust. It was life, waking up inside me, tapping its fingers against my ribs. Good, he said softly. That's perfect. Perfect. What a strange word in this broken room, with this aging body. And yet, for a second, it didn't feel like a lie. For a second, I let myself believe him. We moved through the motions, slow, measured, each stretch a reminder of what still worked, what still mattered. When it ended, he helped me back into the chair. Our eyes met, and something passed between us. Not intention, recognition. I'll see you tomorrow, he said. And then he was gone. But the air he left behind was still warm. I sat there for a long time, fingers curling against the fabric of the armrest, not because it hurt, but because for the first time in weeks, maybe years, I didn't feel invisible. I woke the next morning, with a strange tightness behind my ribs. Not pain, not exactly, more like the echo of something long forgotten, humming through my skin, like a song you haven't heard in decades, but still remember the chorus. I lay still in bed, the sunlight creeping up the walls like it was testing the air outside. The neighborhood was already alive, dogs barking, lawn mowers groaning, birds arguing over God knows what. But inside my chest, silence. And that curious ache, it wasn't physical, not quite. It was the feeling of being remembered, seen, even briefly. I wheeled myself to the bathroom, brushing my hair more carefully than usual. There was no logic to it. Lucas wasn't coming over to admire my split ends. But still, I checked the mirror twice, smoothed the edges of my shirt, dabbed a bit of balm on lips that hadn't been kissed since 2013. When he arrived again, exactly at 10, it felt like the day had been holding its breath. "Morning, Miss Carter," he said, stepping in with a smile that did something I didn't have the courage to name. "Morning, Lucas." The way his name sat in my mouth, soft, solid, felt dangerous. He smelled of cedar and some kind of citrus, not cologne, something quieter. Clean, lived in, the kind of scent that settles into fabric, into memory. Today's session started differently. Less instruction, more conversation. He asked about my cooking, my favorite meals, my old restaurant in Galveston. I told him about the seafood gumbo that once made a food critic cry. He laughed, a warm, belly-deep sound, and said I didn't look like someone who took prisoners in the kitchen. And God help me, I blushed. 65, with veins like faded highways. And still, I blushed during one stretch. He stood behind me, both hands on my shoulders, guiding me gently, firmly, his voice low, close to my ear. "Let yourself move with the breath." And I did. I let the breath come in and out, in and out. And with it, something inside me began to loosen, not muscle, not bone, memory. The last time I had been touched like this, without expectation, without apology, was the year Frank died. And even then, it had been more routine than reverent. But this was different. Lucas wasn't doing anything inappropriate, not even close. But the space between what was happening and what might was a thread so thin I could feel it tremble. I wondered if he felt it too, the current, the pulse of something unspoken. "Doing okay?" he asked. "Yes," I breathed, too fast, too soft, and he smiled again, like he knew. Like maybe this wasn't new to him either. The session ended, and as he packed up his things, I sat quietly, still catching my breath, not from the exercises, from everything else. He turned at the door. "Same time tomorrow." "Yes," I said, but what I meant was, please don't let this be a dream. Please come back. Please don't be like the others who touch you, then leave without noticing what they touched. After he left, the house felt too big again, too quiet. I sat at the table with my lukewarm tea and watched the steam curl upward like a question. I didn't know what was happening, didn't know what I wanted it to become. But I knew this. Something inside me had woken up, and it wasn't ready to sleep again. The third morning, I was already awake when the sun touched the blinds. Sleep had come in fits, shallow and strange, like my body knew something was shifting. I kept hearing his voice, not the words, just the warmth of it, the calm, the quiet strength. By the time the doorbell rang, I'd already brushed my hair 3 times, changed my top twice, wheeled myself into position like a soldier awaiting inspection. When Lucas stepped inside, his smile bloomed instantly. He was carrying a small box. "Brought something new," he said. "A resistance band. Thought we'd try some grip work today." I nodded, hoping he couldn't see the way my fingers curled tighter around the wheels. He crouched beside me, explaining the exercise, but my thoughts were tangled in the space between us. That space had become thick, not heavy, not awkward, just full, like it remembered every breath from yesterday. The session began. He guided my arms, corrected my spine. Every touch was professional focused. But I felt it all, the weight of his hand, the heat from his wrist, the faint brush of his breath when he leaned in to adjust me. We finished the stretches early. "Any pain?" he asked. I shook my head. The ache wasn't in my back. Then it slipped out of me, too casual, too loaded. "Showering Espin, a challenge." Lucas paused. His eyes softened. There was no awkwardness in his face, only concern. "I can help if you want," he said gently. "There's a safe method. We use a chair, handheld sprayer. I stay outside the stream." I should have hesitated. I didn't. "Yes," I said, just like that. He followed me to the bathroom. The silence between us changed shape. It wasn't fear. It wasn't shame. It was something slower, more sacred. He set up the shower chair, checked the water, made sure the soap was within reach. Every movement was careful, respectful. But underneath, I felt it, the hum, the energy, the breath that thickens when a moment holds too much. When he turned to me, I looked straight into his eyes. "You sure?" he asked. I nodded. And then the water came, warm, soothing. But it was the quiet that undid me. The way the room held its breath with us. Lucas didn't rush. He lathered the soap in his palms, the scent of eucalyptus rising gently. His hands moved like they were reading Braille across my shoulders, my back, the curves time had left behind. And I melted, not into the chair, into the moment. I felt my breath change, my chest opening, my skin remembering. He didn't speak, neither did I, but the silence was not empty. It was full of something wordless, something old and new all at once. A warmth that traveled through skin into memory, into longing, into the part of me that had gone silent after Frank died. The part I thought was buried beneath years and wrinkles and names like ma'am. Now it stirred, a quiet tide, rising when he finished. He handed me the towel gently. I dried what I could. He helped with the rest, careful not to meet my eyes. I could hear his breath change when our hands brushed a pause, a pulse. And something within me whispered, alive. You are still alive. He lifted me with care, carried me back to the living room. Neither of us said much. the silence now. It wasn't grief. It wasn't absence. It was the hush that comes after something holy. That night, I couldn't sleep, not because of pain, not because of discomfort, but because the memory of touch had become louder than the silence. I lay in bed with the lights off, the ceiling fan whirring its soft, endless circle. Outside, a siren wailed far away, and somewhere, a dog barked into the dark. But in here, in the thick hush of my bedroom, I was filled with echoes, his hands, his voice, the way he hadn't flinched when he saw my body, the way he hadn't rushed when helping me dress. I reached toward the nightstand for the framed photo of Frank. The silver frame was cool in my palm, and his face looked back at me with that familiar half-smile. Our wedding photo, black and white, hopeful. I stared at it too long enough to feel the guilt rise. Not guilt for what happened. Nothing happened. At least, nothing the world would name. But inside me, a room had opened, and something was standing at the threshold. Frank had been a good man, solid, safe, predictable. He held me like someone tending a garden gently, with duty. But Lucas made me feel like wildflowers. I set the photo down, turned off the lamp. My hands found their way to my stomach, then higher, then paused. There was no plan, only sensation, only memory. The heat from earlier returned, blooming through me, not frantic, not desperate, slow, like honey poured in warm water. I closed my eyes, let my body remember the smell of eucalyptus, the curve of my spine beneath his touch, the way the air thickened between us, holding something unnamed. My fingers trembled as they traced invisible paths across my ribs, and I felt the rise of something that had not visited me in years. Desire, yes, but more than that, permission to feel, to want, to still be a woman. Even now, my breath caught in my throat, and when it left me, it did not sound like sorrow. It sounded like a door opening. I lay there long after, the sheets tangled around my legs, the room soft with moonlight. No tears came, only the quiet beat of my heart, steady and certain. I didn't feel ashamed. I didn't feel wrong. I felt real, like maybe, just maybe, this body wasn't done telling stories yet. When he walked in that morning, something was different. The air, the way his eyes searched mine, a second longer than they needed to, the quiet pause before his usual good morning, Miss Carter, and the way I answered. Call me Evelyn, I said. He blinked, then smiled. Okay, Evelyn. It was the first time my name had sounded like music in years. We went through the motions, arm stretches, leg lifts, core activation. But every movement felt like something else was happening underneath, like two instruments tuning to the same key. At one point, he held my hand longer than usual while guiding it through a grip sequence. His fingers were warm, solid, mine were shaking. And I laughed, nervously, foolishly. Guess I'm still not used to being touched, I said, trying to sound casual. His gaze softened. Well, he said, you're not alone in that. The words hung between us, quiet and full. And suddenly, The silence felt intimate, not awkward, just waiting. We sat on the couch for our cool down, a rolled towel between us. Like a joke, we both understood. He asked about my garden, about my favorite flowers. I asked about his hometown, his favorite meal. Turns out, we both love roasted corn with lime and hate small talk. I watched the way he talked, how his voice dropped when something mattered, how his shoulders relaxed when he stopped trying to be the professional version of himself. So I said it, without ceremony, without filter. Lucas, do you ever stay longer after your sessions? His eyes flicked to mine, a flash of surprise, then curiosity, then something else. A pause. You mean for clients? No, I said, my voice lower now, for people. Another pause. He looked at the floor, then back at me. His face had changed, not in fear, in awareness. I could, he said. I smiled. There's a crisp 100 on my nightstand, I whispered. Could buy me another hour. He laughed, a real one, then shook his head, but didn't get up. Instead, he leaned back, elbows on his knees, and said, You don't need to pay me, Evelyn, I'm here. Something cracked in me, not broken, just opened. I reached for his hand. His fingers met mine, rough and trembling. And we sat there like that, two people, one old wound, one shared moment. I didn't kiss him, not yet. But I looked at his mouth and let him see me looking. He didn't look away, and in that quiet space between what we said and didn't, I felt it again. That impossible, stubborn thing, hope. It started with silence. Not the awkward kind, not the emptiness of two people with nothing to say. This silence was full, ripe, expectant, like something waiting to bloom. The session had ended. The stretches were done. The towel rolled, the mat folded. But neither of us moved. Lucas sat on the edge of the couch, hands resting on his knees, fingers twitching like they wanted something to hold. I was beside him, heart loud in my chest, breath shallow, skin too awake. Do you want me to leave? He asked, voice low, careful. I shook my head. And in that nod, 1,000 words passed, grief, need, hunger, permission. He turned toward me, searching my face, as if reading a map he wasn't sure he should follow. My hand found his first, palm against palm, warmth meeting warmth. Then the space between us disappeared. There were no fireworks, no movie soundtracks, just a shift in air pressure, a leaning in, a breath caught between mouths. And then the softest collision. His lips on mine, not rushed, not practiced, but real, so achingly real I thought I might break. And maybe I did. Not my body held, but the walls inside me, the ones built brick by brick from widowhood and loneliness, those cracked. His hand cupped my jaw, hesitant at first, then steady. Mine gripped his shirt like I might fall without him. And in that kiss, unfolding, uncertain, sacred, something long dormant stirred, not lust, not even comfort, something closer to recognition. I know you, even if I shouldn't. He pulled back first, eyes searching mine. I didn't look away. I shouldn't, he said. I know, I whispered. But neither of us moved. The second kiss was different, deeper, more certain. Less question, more answer. And the rest, what followed, happened not like a storm, but like a tide, slow, inevitable, a rising warmth that crept over us, around us, through us. There were no instructions, no guidebooks, only instinct and breath, and the sacred silence of two bodies remembering how to be soft. I didn't think about age or wrinkles or the marks time had left behind. I thought about skin on skin and what it meant to be held without shame, to be wanted not in spite of time, but because of it. Every touch was a question, and every answer was yes. Yes, I'm still here. Yes, this still matters. Yes, I want this now, while I can still feel later. We lay tangled in the hush, the fans spinning overhead, the world unchanged outside. But inside me, new land. He didn't speak. Neither did I. Words would have cheapened it. The only thing I could hear was the echo of my own breath, steady and alive. And I knew, in that moment, no matter what happened next, something in me had returned. He didn't come the next day, no text, no call, nothing. I sat by the window until noon, the sunlight crawling across the rug like it had somewhere better to be. The tea went cold beside me. My hands trembled, not from weakness, but from waiting. By 2 o'clock, I called Marlene. She answered with her usual cheer. "Oh, Evelyn, just letting you know, I'm back in town. I'll swing by tomorrow morning to check on your progress. Hope Lucas was helpful while I was gone." Helpful, I hung up politely, then sat in silence that felt louder than any scream. Helpful. Is that what it was? Was I just a favor, a transaction, a moment stretched too far? I wheeled myself to the bathroom, the one where water had once run like a hymn, stared at the tile. The faint outline of his shadow still lived in the corners of my memory. I thought I was stronger, thought this wouldn't matter, thought I could hold it all like some woman in a poem, wise, graceful, untouchable. But I wasn't. I was a woman who remembered how it felt to be kissed like a secret, held like a promise, and then forgotten. I didn't cry, not right away. I made it to the bed, took off my sweater, folded it carefully, like that would keep me from falling apart. Then the tears came, not the kind that fall in a neat line, the kind that spill like rain from a roof, too full to hold any more. I wanted to call Nina, to tell her something, anything. But what would I say? Your mother wanted something she wasn't supposed to. Your mother let herself feel too much. No, instead, I sat there, staring at nothing, trying to forget the way his breath had felt against my shoulder, the way his name had sounded in my mouth, Lucas, like light, like fire, by dusk. I'd made a decision, not noble, not bitter, just necessary. I deleted his number, pressed the button, watched it vanish. But it didn't vanish from me. My body still remembered, my heart still hummed. The sheets still held his scent, faint and stubborn. And in the quiet that followed, I whispered the only truth I could hold. I wanted more. But I would survive with less, even if surviving meant waking up every morning and pretending that night didn't happen. It began with rage, quiet at first, like a match struck in the dark, tiny, flickering, but undeniable. I burned toast, Not because I wasn't paying attention, because I wanted to, because the smell of something ruined matched what I felt inside. Then I dumped the rest of the bread in the trash, wheeled to the living room, and knocked over the basket of folded laundry just to hear the sound of something hitting the floor. It wasn't enough. None of it was enough. I opened the bathroom cabinet, looked at the orange bottles lined up like soldiers, pill after pill, with names that promised relief, control, quiet. I picked one up, turned it in my palm, then threw it into the sink. The sound it made was loud and clean. I didn't stop there. I opened the windows, let in the wind, let in the dust, let in the city. I wheeled back to the bedroom, pulled out my suitcase, threw in clothes without folding. Didn't care what matched, didn't care what was clean. Then I stopped, stared into the mirror. My reflection met me like an old rival, eyes too tired, skin too thin. But behind all that, something else. A woman still breathing. I touched the mirror, not like a farewell, like a promise. I'm not done, I said, and it felt like a spell, a blessing, a battle cry. That afternoon, I called the front desk of the little inn in Wimberley I used to love, asked for a room, didn't explain why they remembered me. Chef Carter. Yes, I said, but just Evelyn now. I packed slowly, deliberately, as if every pair of socks was a declaration. And when it was done, I sat on the edge of the bed, felt the weight of my body, felt the strength still hidden in the ache. I didn't cry. I stood, not perfectly, not without shaking, but I stood. Then I walked 5 slow steps toward the door, without help, without permission. And in those 5 steps, I felt something shift, a tether cut, a flame rise. I opened the door, stepped into the light. And for the first time since the fall, I didn't feel broken. I felt dangerous. He came back on a Tuesday, no warning, no text, just the sound of knuckles against wood, soft and steady. I had just finished folding the last shirt from the dryer. There was still heat in the cotton, still silence in the house. When I opened the door, he stood there, same blue eyes, same careful posture. But something in him had changed, less polished, more real. His hands were empty. His voice, when it came, was low, measured. Hi. I said nothing. He took a breath. I'm sorry. Still, I waited. I panicked, he said. What happened between us? It wasn't planned. And I didn't know what to do with it, with you, with me. I crossed my arms, not from anger, from defense. I had rebuilt myself in his absence. You didn't owe me anything, Lucas, I said. But you could have said goodbye. He nodded, eyes falling to the floor. I know. We stood in the doorway, time thick between us. I came back because I couldn't stop thinking about it, he said. About you, the way you looked at me, the way I felt when I left. And how did you feel? I asked. Like a coward, he said. Like someone who touched something sacred and ran. My throat tightened, not from pain, from recognition. I stepped aside, let him in. He didn't rush to speak again. Instead, he looked around at the bookshelf, the new flowers in the vase, the walking cane propped against the wall. You've changed things, he said. So have you. We sat not close, but not far. I thought I needed you to help me walk again, I said. But the truth is, I needed to remember who I was without waiting for someone to save me. He looked at me like I had handed him a truth he didn't know he was looking for. I'm proud of you, he said. No, I replied. I'm proud of me. Silence again. But this one was soft, like an old blanket. Do you want me to stay? He asked. I held his gaze, saw the boy, the man, the fear, the want. I don't need you to, I said. But you can, if you're coming as you, not my therapist, not my mistake. He nodded, slow, certain. I'm here, he said. And for the first time, I believed him. The inn smelled like old wood and lavender. I hadn't been back in years, not since before Frank passed. Back then, it was just a quiet escape, a place to breathe now. It felt like something else. Like a beginning, the woman at the front desk smiled when she saw me. Evelyn Carter, she said. I remember you, room 4, right? I nodded. Still got that swing on the porch, she laughed. Still creaks when you sit in it. Some things don't change. Some things do. I signed my name on the check-in slip, paused, then added Ms. in the blank space where no one asked me to, because I could, because I chose to that evening. I sat on the porch with a book I didn't open. The sun dipped behind the trees, painting gold across my knees. A breeze moved through the branches like fingers parting hair. I listened to the birds, to the wind, to the sound of my own breath, steady and unrushed. Lucas had offered to come. I told him no, not because I didn't want him, but because I wanted this moment to belong to me. He understood. We still talked, sometimes daily. But something had shifted. We were no longer two people tangled in need. We had become something quieter, something braver. I had started painting again. My hips still ached, but they moved. My legs still shook, but they held once a week. I hosted a dinner at home, not a party, not a pity meal, just a gathering of women who used to think the fire had gone out. We lit candles, poured wine, told stories that curled around the room like music. Sometimes I thought of that first fall, how it hurt, how it stole my breath, how it gave me everything back. Pain was the door, but I walked through it. And now I sit in a room I chose, in a life I didn't expect, with a body that still remembers how to be touched, and a heart that doesn't apologize for wanting more, not someday. Now, I looked up at the stars breaking into view, whispered a quiet, certain truth to the dark. I am still mine.